Good morning. I just received a briefing on Hurricane Michael from federal, state, and local officials at the State Emergency Management Operations Center here in Tallahassee. Let me be clear. Hurricane Michael is a monstrous storm, and the forecast keeps getting more dangerous, and we're now just 12 hours away from seeing impacts. Again, Hurricane Michael is to the Panhandle, and impacts will start in just 12 hours. The time to prepare is now. Yesterday, I formally asked President Trump to issue a pre-landfall disaster declaration that will allow us to draw down more federal resources. Once this is approved, my office will get that information to you. I also spoke with the President yesterday. He committed to providing any federal assistance Florida may need. We have declared a state emergency in 35 Florida counties. This allows state, federal, and local emergency managers to be able to quickly respond to this disaster. Yesterday, I announced the closure of state offices in the 35 counties currently under our emergency order. I've spoken to FEMA Administrator Brock Long several times, and a team from FEMA is here in the State Emergency Operations Center and providing federal assistance. That includes experts from Homeland Security, the EPA, the Department of Defense, Health and Human Services, and the Army Corps of Engineers. At my direction, the State Emergency Operations Center is fully activated. This means the State Emergency Response Team is on 24-hour response. We are 100% focused on preparing for Hurricane Michael. Here's what we know right now. The National Hurricane Center has active hurricane, storm surge, and tropical storm warnings and watches along the Gulf Coast. A hurricane warning is in effect for the Gulf Coast of Florida from the Florida-Alabama border to the Swanee River. A tropical storm warning is in effect and extends from the Swanee River south to Citrus County. A storm surge warning is in effect for the Gulf Coast of Florida from the Okaloosa-Walton County line to the Anclote River. Hurricane, tropical storm, and storm surge watches remain in effect for much of the Gulf Coast, and Tampa Bay remains under both storm surge and tropical storm watches. We also now have a tropical storm watch from Fernandina Beach north to the Georgia border. As the storm approaches, there will also be a significant threat of tornadoes. It is critical for you to listen to local news reports. Hurricane Michael is a massive storm that could bring total devastation to parts of our state, especially in the Panhandle. Think about the destruction we've seen before with storms like Hurricane Irma. Hurricane Michael poses a deadly threat, and as it grows stronger, we can expect it to make landfall as a major Category 3 storm on Wednesday along the Gulf Coast. The Panhandle and parts of the Big Bend will likely see winds in excess of 110 miles per hour. Think about that, 110 miles per hour. Pensacola could see sustained hurricane force winds of 75 miles per hour or more. Tallahassee could see sustained hurricane force winds of 75 miles per hour or more. Again, Hurricane Michael is forecast to be the most destructive storm to hit the Florida Panhandle in decades. The storm will be life-threatening and extremely dangerous. We're expecting 4 to 8 inches of rain, and some areas might see 12 inches of rain. The storm will bring torrential rain to most of the Panhandle and Big Bend, which means flooding will be a major issue. Again, prepare for major flooding from this storm. Hurricane Michael will bring deadly storm surge to many areas, even those outside the path. The National Hurricane Center is forecasting storm surge to be between 8 to 12 feet between Indian Pass and Gulf County and Cedar Key and Levy County. That means the water will come miles inshore and could easily be over the roofs of houses. Think about that, 8 to 12 feet. 8 to 12 feet of storm surge is deadly. I cannot stress enough how dangerous this storm surge will be. And just think about it. We've seen with just tsunamis where it's just 3 feet, and that's deadly. So 8 to 12 feet is absolutely deadly. Between Cedar Key and the Crystal River, we're expecting to see 6 to 8 feet of surge. Much of the rest of the Gulf Coast will see between 2 and 6 feet of storm surge, which is still life-threatening. Think about it this way. If the storm hits near Panama City, the Tampa area will still see life-threatening storm surge. You cannot hide from storm surge, so get prepared and get out if an evacuation is ordered. Every family must be prepared now. Remember, we can rebuild your house, but we cannot rebuild your life. Take this seriously and keep your family safe. Here's what the state is doing right now. I've activated 2,000 National Guardsmen for storm response. They have deployed with boats. Law enforcement. Fish and Wildlife is responding. Fish and Wildlife is actively monitoring Hurricane Michael and ready to respond. 120 officers are ready for deployment. They will respond with a variety of specialized equipment, including shallow draft boats, ATVs, airboats, and four-wheel drive vehicles. The Florida Highway Patrol is making nearly 350 troopers available for deployment across the Panhandle, and they have transitioned to 12-hour shifts. Law enforcement will also be manning bridges to make sure that when conditions become too dangerous, the bridges are closed. Listen to these officers. Law enforcement around our state are heroes, and so many will be leaving their families and placing themselves in danger during the storm to help others. We are so grateful for their dedication. Transportation. The Florida Department of Transportation is actively monitoring Tropical Storm Michael, or Hurricane Michael, and is preparing crews in anticipation of landfall. To help with evacuations, I directed the Florida Department of Transportation to waive all tolls in the Panhandle. This includes Mid-Bay Bridge and Spence Parkway in Okaloosa County, Garkin Point Bridge in Santa Rosa County, Bob Sykes Toll Bridge in Escambia County, and Orchard Pond Parkway in Leon County. Fuel. Right now, we do not have widespread fuel shortages or outages in the state. The State Emergency Response Team has been holding regular calls with the fuel industry and ports in Florida to ensure they can get gas to the areas safely. Floridians can download the app Gas Buddy to check where fuel is available. We will be monitoring fuel throughout the day. This is a top priority. Healthcare facilities and response. The Florida Agency for Healthcare Administration is in contact with healthcare facilities to ensure they have the resources they need. Florida Department of Health has 5 ambulance strike teams and 35 special needs shelter teams ready to deploy. The Department of Education is also working with local districts to ensure they have everything they need to open shelters quickly. For our local governments, let's make sure everyone has what they need. Local governments need to have a power restoration plan. We just heard from Duke Energy, and they have 5,000 personnel ready to deploy, and Gulf Power has 3,000 personnel ready to deploy. Getting the lights back on after the storm is the top priority. If we need to have evacuations, local communities need to issue the orders now. We cannot afford to wait. Acting quickly and decisively is the most important thing we can do right now. For our families, our state will do whatever it takes to make sure that every family and visitor in Florida is prepared for any possible impact from Michael. Families should get 3 days of food and water and make sure all medications are ready. Check on your neighbors. Listen to local officials. During disasters, Floridians take care of each other. We are already seeing mandatory evacuations being ordered in counties across the Panhandle. If you are in an evacuation order, leave, don't wait. If you're on the fence, don't think about it, do it. This storm can kill you. Remember, during a storm, first responders cannot come out and save you. It's too dangerous. You need to evacuate if you're ordered to do so. If your county is planning evacuation orders later today, go ahead and leave now. Don't wait. Look, I know that evacuations are not fun and they're absolutely inconvenient. I always think about my parents growing up and how hard it would have been on them to evacuate with limited resources. But in Florida, there are so many people ready to help you, and there's no excuse not to keep your family safe. So let's all stay safe, stay alert to weather updates, and watch this storm closely. Michael can still change direction and impact any part of our state. Impacts will start today. Get ready. There isn't any reason to not be prepared to keep your family safe. We all have families. I'm a dad and I'm a grandfather. My family is the most important thing to me, and I can't imagine anything happen to them. Now is the time to prioritize your family. Keep them safe. Do not take a chance. You can visit floridadisaster.org to make a plan and get information on road closures, shelters, and evacuations. You can visit fl511.com for current road conditions. Families can also call the State Emergency Information Line for assistance. You can follow at FLCERT or at FLGovScott on Twitter for live updates on Tropical Storm Michael. Con la llegada de este huracán, lo más importante que cada familia puede hacer es tener un plan. Familias deben tener por lo menos 3 días de comida, agua, medicamentos y otros suministros esenciales. Haga un plan hoy, esté preparado. I'm glad to answer any questions.
Governor, during Hurricane Irma last year, sir, you guided the state through a massive evacuation from here. My question is, and I'm referring to your statement a minute ago, local communities need to issue evacuation orders. Why is evacuation in this storm solely a local responsibility, not the state's?
Sure. The primary responsibility is locals. Here's what I'm worried about right now is I think a lot of people have been through 110 mile an hour winds. They've been through 12 inches of rain. I think what's different about this storm that really concerns me is the storm surge. We have a chance of 8 to 12 feet of storm surge. I will hope everybody takes that seriously. Even 2 to 4 feet of storm surge is deadly, and so I want to make sure every local community is thinking about their evacuation orders.
Governor, do you feel that the local communities that are in harm's way are prepared for this? Do you feel confident that we're walking into this last day, that these local communities are ready to go and they're online?
I think everybody. I've been talking to mayors. I've been talking to county commissions. I've been going around the state. I think people are taking this seriously. I think the thing that concerns me the most is the storm surge right now. But this, we all know this thing came up fast, and it wasn't like Irma where we had quite a bit of time to prepare. So and I know people are working hard to get ready. We've been making phone calls to, I've been making them, and others here have been making phone calls to sheriffs all across the state just to make sure people are ready.
Governor, what about shelters for the evacuated areas? If all the decisions are local, how will you know that there's enough shelter space for the people that are evacuating that they
We
have
work on
somewhere
it.
to go?
We're working with the locals to make sure if there's shelter needs, that one, we get them open, and two, that we get them staffed. We're working both with our local communities and with the Red Cross and with the National Guard. If you go back to Irma, what ended up happening, we worked to open up shelters. A lot, most of them are in our schools, and so that's one thing that Pam Stewart's working on, work with our school districts. And so what happened, if you remember what happened then, I think it was over 700 shelters. And so the National Guard was a big key when we got them opened. And then the Red Cross was also a big part of it, and then we were able to get more volunteers in.
Governor, looking at special needs shelters, is that squared away too? We have enough?
We're going through county by county to make sure we have all the shelters we need.
Governor, looking ahead to after the storm, let's talk about power restoration. Obviously, when we were here during Hermine, we had a problem with outside crews, their help supposedly being rejected by local utilities out of safety concerns. What assurances can you give residents that, for lack of a better term, this time outside mutual aid crews and local utilities will play nicer or be able to work together to get power back on faster?
So here's what I did after Hermine. I brought all the utilities together, the co-ops, the municipals, the investor-owns, and said, my expectation is that you work with mutual aid agreements. So if there's any needs, there's no time. You don't have to worry about it afterwards. You're ready in the beginning. Making sure that people, that these entities pre-position assets as much as possible. We've been holding calls with the utilities, and I've been talking to the utilities over the last, I guess I started some on Sunday, last 3 days, making sure people are doing that. And I've called on everybody to get ready. If you look at it, we got to keep everybody safe. And that's why I hope everybody is taking the evacuation orders very seriously. The thing that worries me the most is the storm surge. Two, we've got to make sure we get power back on as quickly as possible. So I'm trying to make sure everybody has these relationships in place. We pre-position assets. I've talked to, this morning we've talked to Gulf and to Duke, and that's why I put out their numbers. They've got about, I think Duke has 5,000 personnel on standby, and Gulf has 3,000.
But Governor, let me press you one more time about the coordination between the local utilities and the out-of-town help. Has anything directly been addressed in terms of making sure that they can work together better and more quickly? Because as you remember, that is exactly the problem we had here in Tallahassee.
So what we did was I got them all together, and I asked them to sign mutual aid agreements. We put out, I think yesterday, the who has agreements, and so I've made phone calls, and we've had conference calls, and just made sure people are talking to each other.
Governor, you said the agency is in touch with healthcare facilities right now to make sure they have the resources they need. What plan do you have for those facilities to alert the state if they run into issues during or immediately after the storm this time around?
Sure. The State Agency for Healthcare Administration has been making phone calls to all of our healthcare facilities, making sure to ask them if they have any unmet needs and seeing what help they might need, and then make sure they're accessible to make sure that if there are needs that we do it as quickly as we can. But my expectation is if you're a healthcare facility, you have a responsibility to take care of those patients. And so I did an emergency order after Irma, and then we got legislation passed, and my expectation is people comply.
Governor, this is sort of touching on Steve's earlier question. It seems like with Irma, it was this orchestra, 6 million people, that were evacuating. Stores were shut down. There was only fuel stations were left open for a while. It seems like, especially Tallahassee, it's kind of it's a little bit looser. People seem to be taking more in stride. Does that concern you at all, or do you think that everyone is on the same page here with addressing the storm to make sure that everyone's staying safe?
Eric, I'm gonna do everything I can to get people to focus on this storm. Get people, every family's got to think about their own safety first and do that. We're making phone calls. We're doing everything we can to make sure everybody's focused on getting ready, and then we're gonna do our job. Once it happens, be ready to try to help with recovery as quickly as possible. But my first goal is to keep everybody safe. We all think about our families, and I think about, I want to keep my family safe, but I want everybody to keep their family safe, and that's my first goal. And I'll be traveling up today to some communities, and with the whole message is you've got to listen to local officials, and you've got to keep yourself safe. This is a devastating storm. The state has experienced winds before like this and rain like this. The storm surge could be historic.
All right, thank you guys so much.
Thanks.